What makes a place like Japan successful and resilient, in spite of recurring and frequent natural disasters? Looking at dozens of historical instances where the arts have made a positive contribution to local vitality and urban renewal post-earthquake, one must ask whether other types of earthquake preparedness initiatives could not have been equally productive and transformative. In some cases, the answer is certainly yes, but the arts have a special character to offer. By searching out examples of the successful use of the arts in earthquake responses, it leads us to identify certain key factors about art itself that contribute to its success. In chronological order, the following film highlights some of these key factors, whose importance can be seen in the Japanese towns we have reviewed. Before we go on, we need to elaborate on what resilience means. Resilience allows us to persevere through crises and build communities. The Vancouver City Council defines resilience as the capacity of individuals, communities, institutions, businesses, and systems within a city to survive, adapt, and grow, no matter what kind of chronic stress and acute shocks they experience. Interestingly, when the community was asked, each person had their own unique definition of resilience. Some say resilience is the ability to bounce forward, while others say it's planning with love for future generations. Up until a century or two ago, people believed in supernatural phenomena and invented creative reasons to explain earthquakes. For instance, in Eastern African earthquake myths, people deduced that a cow stands on a huge flat stone and the stone in turn is resting on the back of a giant fish. The cow balances the earth on the tip of one of its long horns. Sometimes it causes her neck to ache. When the aching gets too bad, she tosses the globe onto the other horn. They believed that it was this movement that caused the earth to shake. In Japan, people believed earthquakes to be the result of a giant catfish called namazu. Edo, now modern-day Tokyo, experienced a large earthquake called the Great Onsai Earthquake in 1855. It was a destructive 7.0 magnitude earthquake that killed at least 7,000 people and destroyed key areas of the city. What's more, great fires and as many as 80 aftershocks per day continued to shake the city until 9 days after the initial earthquake. In the midst of chaos, artists jumped onto a new trend. Just 2 days after the initial earthquake, woodblock prints were used to express the artists' collective anxieties, discontent, and aspirations for change. They became both an effective political tool and a way to illustrate the current events that they were experiencing during this time. They were easily reproducible, with over 400 varieties of earthquake-related prints. However, approximately after 2 months of their circulation, the government was able to sufficiently enforce the shutdown of any further production of catfish prints, but by then, thousands of them were in circulation. The print that you are looking at is the first catfish print that was produced, having over 1,000 prints sold instantly. The artist parodies a popular Japanese classical play that is easily recognized by the general public in order to communicate the detailed account of the earthquake, including the areas that were affected. Through this playful manner, they present solemn information that is easily relatable to the common folk. Why focus on catfish in particular? In Japanese folklore, giant catfish were believed to have strong ties with earthquakes. In terms of political satire, catfish were often given human-like qualities and related to the economic changes that occurred after the earthquake. This one shows a group of construction workers finding themselves in a sudden wealth and heading to the Yoshiwara, the red light district, during that time. And if you look closely, you can find some catfish lining up with the men as well. The dramatic swarm it depicts makes fun of humans' sexual desires and satirizes the drastic social change at the time. This print takes an even more cynical approach by featuring a catfish in Buddhist monk's clothing and surrounded by worshippers, carpenters, lumber dealers, and so forth, who profited from the disaster, while the ghosts of victims loomed overhead. We can see that these prints serve as important commentaries on the socio-economic consequences of the Onsai earthquake. The construction workers strive while many others remained homeless and lived in poverty. However, the next print you are about to see tells a different story. Over time, the image of catfish transitioned from that of a scapegoat to a savior. As you can see here, the catfish are depicted as rescuers to those suffering from the disaster. Although Edo experienced a tragedy, the motif of the catfish united the community and furthered collective change. Most of the driving forces described in these case studies are perfectly ordinary people, a group of anonymous guerrilla artists. The main qualities required would seem to be a little vision and enthusiasm and a great deal of determination. Anyone can be a driving force. About 70 years after the Great Onsei earthquake, Japan's Tokyo and Yokohama experienced a long earthquake in 1923 that lasted about 4 to 5 minutes, which led to a tsunami and a massive firestorm shortly after. These fires burned for over 2 nights and were 1.5 times greater than the infamous San Francisco earthquake. After the 3rd day, the death toll was 140,000. Akira Kurosawa, the director of the critically acclaimed film Seven Samurai, was influenced by the Tokyo and Yokohama earthquake in 1923. During his adolescence, he witnessed scenes of lawless mayhem and heaps of human corpses, which strongly correlate to the themes of contrasting extremes in human behavior and emotion in his films. He was greatly astounded by the extraordinary power of nature alongside the extraordinary aspects of human nature. This is an attitude prevalent in his samurai movie about chaotic destruction, social tension, and human virtue. Although there is no direct reference to the 1923 earthquake, the earthquake still played a major role in influencing one of the most well-known filmmakers in history, as well as having a great impact on other films like Star Wars. Art is always informed by an artist's personal experiences, but art influenced by collective experiences, in this case, a real-life earthquake, can increase the weight of its impact on society. In 2016, Japan was once again struck by a devastating earthquake. This time, it was the Kumamoto region that experienced 2 consecutive earthquakes. Several areas underwent heavy land deformation, 10,000 homes and buildings were destroyed or severely damaged, and casualties rose over the thousands. During the rebuilding of Kumamoto, Katsuaki Sato noticed that there was an abundance of blue tarps. He decided to use these tarps as a way to promote a positive community.
As the region recovered, the worn sheets were no longer needed and destined for disposal. Instead, the idea was hatched to recycle them as handy shopping bags. This was the brainchild of Katsuaki Sato, a Kumamoto designer. Sato's office was badly damaged in the disaster. I never dreamed we would have a disaster like this in Kumamoto, and I want everyone to be aware that it could happen wherever you are. To add to the emotional impact of the bags, Sato makes them with plastic that still bears the scars of its service protecting people's wrecked homes. Profits are donated to disaster-affected communities.
As you can see, these bags brought the community together to look past the traumatic event they just experienced. From being simply a construction item that reminded the people of their recent trauma, it became a symbol of hope that represents Kumamoto's recovery efforts. In the wake of the 2016 Kumamoto earthquake, one man, the author of the globally famous manga series One Piece, Ichiro Oda, produced a series of artworks and manga shorts to support the Kumamoto recovery efforts. Like the Catfish prints, manga is significant in the Japanese history for being a widespread medium with the capacity to deliver great political impacts. The characters from One Piece served as iconic mascots that garnered awareness and support from all over the world. On top of producing manga to support recovery, Ichiro Oda donated 800 million yen, or 9.7 million Canadian dollars, to help rebuild the prefecture, which was once his home. He is working on fundraising with the prefecture through the One Piece Kumamoto Revival Project. To honor this contribution, a life-sized statue of the One Piece hero, Luffy, was erected. The remarkable thing about this project is that it doesn't remain stagnant, but continues to evolve into a tourist attraction, with 8 more statues featuring other characters from One Piece scheduled to be erected in the region. This has already garnered some international visibility for the region, which can further support its recovery. Even at a site of tragic destruction, new energy and positivity can spawn through collective engagement efforts. His heartfelt letter to those affected by the earthquake had become the symbol of hope and resilience. Its English translation can be read as, "A huge earthquake has struck Kumamoto and all Kyushu area. I was born in Kumamoto, it's my hometown. I would like to offer my deep and sincere sympathy to the people who have suffered direct damage. I have been luckily able to make contact directly with my family and friends. They are still afraid, but are also trying to keep hanging on. Everyone even says things that makes me feel relieved. How strong they are. But people cannot brace themselves forever. I hope the situation will be settled before their strength is entirely spent. Adults are doing their best not to make the children worried. I want children to smile the most, because that's the best encouragement for adults. Currently, it is a little difficult to provide support from private sectors, but I promise that I will definitely help the reconstruction. So please hang in there." Manga artist Ami Uozumi, also inspired by the 2016 Kumamoto earthquake in Japan, created a series of comic strips which provided several tips for those displaced after an earthquake. Though the media had stopped reporting on their recovery as of late, Kumamoto still hasn't fully recovered from the 2016 earthquake. Uozumi hoped people would use her tips as a guide in a disaster, and her manga includes tips on making food when people lack modern amenities, such as cooking rice without a rice cooker. The manga, which the tips were a part of, Hisai Meshi, is an autobiographical account of the artist and her roommate's experience taking shelter at a community center when they could not go home. The public's response was highly supportive. The compelling image and word combination enables the artist to share life-saving information that can be easily understood by the public, including children. Uozumi wishes to open up conversations about earthquakes in an everyday context so that the readers can casually share what they learned and expand their community of support. These artistic projects, created across Japan spanning decades of earthquakes, demonstrate that a resilient culture is fostered from the artistic work practice. From Edo's woodblock prints to the making of the blue seed bags to One Piece's growing popularity, artists have transformed a traumatic experience into an opportunity to build social cohesion, having them emerge stronger, more resilient from the debris. We learned that the arts are not an alternative to earthquake preparedness initiatives, like practical environmental and structural improvements, but rather they are a vital component which, like yeast in dough, transforms a given situation. The arts focus on what is special about a town and its people, and how its history can prefigure its future. Everything about a town is then a potential resource for regeneration.